Welcome to Vespertine. In today's episode, we will be exploring the role of the filmmaker, mainly through the visionary world of the director. Sigurður Anton Friðþjófsson has worked behind the camera for a decade as both an independent and professional film director. Over his career, he has released 3 feature films, Webcam, Snow and Salome, both of which he produced with his production company Stova 224, and his most recent film, Mentor. He is currently in post-production for his 4th feature, and joins me today to talk about his beginnings, his inspirations, and the nature of film in the world of streaming services.
So, Sigurður, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
So, when did you first realize that you wanted to be a filmmaker?
As soon as I knew what a filmmaker was.
Right.
I always wanted to be like a writer and an actor. When I thought, like, when I was a kid, I wanted to write movies and act them because, you thought that the actors made the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But, as soon as I knew what a director was, that's what I wanted to be.
Exactly.
And, that was like very early on in my life. So
would you also say, on how you watched films and all that definitely contributed in the sort of content that was kind of going around?
Yeah.
When you were growing up, in terms of it kind of being exposed to that you were quickly exposed to that, or?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I was always thinking about like how they did the things that were in the movies, and and also like what connected them, like the actors and also like the directors. Like this is by the same director who did this movie and this movie, and those kind of things.
So it was very much early on.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, but then if you'd approached it with so many different roles in mind that you kind of would have loved to have done, what was it the thing about being, because you are both a writer and director in terms of the features that you've made, but what was the sort of thing that made you make that decision that you would be probably best suited for that? Was it maybe something that was a bit more organic with the projects, or?
Just wanted to control.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be like, wanted to be the one who was in control. Pretty much. That's That's
definitely a feeling I think I share. That's why I've gone the writing path and all that, because you do kind of feel exactly like you're saying, you want to have the control.
Yeah, and I mean, and also like that was the starting point. But like, I've tried small acting parts and small this, and that's the writing and the directing and the editing is the thing that I like the most out of it.
The sort of the technical parts being behind the scenes rather.
Yeah, but like. Yeah, no, but the creative parts of
the creative parts.
Yeah,
of the
technical. I have been a cinematographer of a short movie I've done. I have recorded audio. I have all these things, and they can be fun, but it's not like my passion is in the directing and the.
Well, I mean, if having that experience, then because you have your own company and studio that you've kind of built from the ground up, with like-minded people wanting to make stuff, and so to have that experience, how along the way, that's definitely helped you a lot.
Yeah, definitely. I've been very, very, very lucky through my life to befriend and meet people who have been creative and wanted to make movies and wanted to act and wanted to shoot movies and all that stuff. Yeah. So I've been very, and if I hadn't, I probably wouldn't be making movies, because I kind of built my career and my filmmaking on making movies with my friends. Who then So it's definitely the sort of because I mean definitely Webcam and Snow and Salome or Snow and Salome. I mean, these are films that I would say are very much kind of tied in, not just with Icelandic culture, but it definitely feels like it's a lot of it is kind of centered around a group of friends. And the story kind of flows through that. So that's coming from the inspiration of what you had with your group. Yeah, probably. Like I haven't thought about it that way, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But and also like it comes from, because I know a lot of people who act, and I wanna that are my friends and that I wanna work with. That makes you write characters for them, so that kind of organically kind of makes it. I haven't made a movie that's like only 2 people, two characters, like because I want. There are so many people that I want to work with.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's especially early on. Like you wrote characters for people around you that you wanted to work with. So that's there.
Exactly.
That
So
sense,
you'd see the potential in others, and wanted to bring it forth. I mean that group is a friend group that you have, but in terms of how that kind of relates to filmmaking on a broader stance, in terms because you aren't necessarily you're sort of a self-taught filmmaker in that sense. You're not you didn't go to school.
I went to what you would call like high school, like framhaldsskóli here. Was like it was called fjölmiðlatekni, so like media technique.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's the my speciality in high school was media technique on. So and that was like 3 years. So but I didn't go to like film school or
no.
In media technique you learned to operate a camera and all the technical stuff. And you had to do like you got to do short movies, and the final project was to do a documentary, which because I had no interest in documentary, I did a mockumentary. That way I kind of snuck
sort of a creative sense.
Snuck some fiction into it. But yeah, that and also from there, you met all these people who were really talented.
Yeah.
That's where I met like my cinematographer, who I worked with on all of my movies. He was there, and a lot of the actors I worked with them were on, because that same school had like and has actor path.
Right.
So I met a lot of people in that school. Right, I think that's kind of.
And would you say? I mean, I'm not. I mean, because I went through a very similar type of path in the school that I went, but I think that the one that you went through is one of the sort of the earlier versions, which has certainly developed further along the lines in the past sort of years that these sort of paths here in Iceland specifically have been. Did you feel? I mean, with all the experience that you were getting with both technology and then the kind of grasp with these ideas and all that, with essentially just on a high school level, but then catapults you into wanting to do it professionally, or do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, it's been last year it was 10 years since I graduated school, so it has changed a lot, and it has become more. They have now a filmmaking path, and more kind of what we were, because back then they had media technique and they had graphic design, and in the art department, that is. And a lot of us were in media technique and even graphic design. We wanted to make movies and we wanted to make music videos and all that stuff, and we kind of just used the equipment and the talent, the people around us, to do that. And I think that kind of shaped the rest of the coming years in that school. Also, I mean, not just I don't mean just like us as individuals, also just. At that time, we're talking like 2009, 10, 11. Like there was a huge boom, especially in Iceland.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, we went from like when it came to like music videos, like there was a huge boom in music videos. Like we went from like no music videos at all to like every song had a music video, because you could put it on YouTube and you could shoot digitally and edit digitally, and like so. Yeah, I was kind of at that time. Yeah, but also like we had these. I was also really lucky to like have these teachers who were really like supportive.
Yes,
and
exactly.
had a lot of experience in film and video making and all that. That was also a big part.
Yeah, because it is obviously very interesting as well, because your group being an independent one, having the passion of saying. Was it sort of a straight up conversation of a couple of friends saying we're just going to go do it, and was there ever maybe a potential doubt for that? Did you feel like, what is, if you want to get into filmmaking, maybe it's a bit more Icelandic specific, but let's say if you were to try to get into that, would you say that this is probably the way to do it, or is there some doubt or some risk involved in doing that? I
think it's the way to do it. But especially, I mean, if you don't have, I mean, you know, there are people out there that are kind of, what's it called, nepo babies and stuff, like, like if you know, if you have access and have connections to get funding or whatever and do something big and whatever, like, you do that. But if you're at the same place that I was and a lot of people around me were, I think that's, you know, you have to build a kind of ecosystem around you of, you know, talented and technical people. And I think, but there was never a conversation about it. It was just, it just happened. Like, it was just, you know, we would, I mean, from the school angle, like, we would just, you know, we would put together to do projects and we would get to know each other that way. And then, you know, we would have ideas, you know, I'm going to do this music, we're going to do this. And we would just collaborate that way. And that, you know, and then once we graduated, we were still doing shorts and music videos and stuff like that. And we would just keep on working together.
Yeah.
It was really kind of natural.
Yeah, and so you would say that maybe the experience and obviously the passion of just wanting to film anything really kind of then evolved into projects that suited a sort of feature film type of
because like once I decided to make a feature film, which was like late 2012, and we shot it in 2013. It was a horror film, like horror comedy, called Isabella, which got one screening in Bio Paradis, which is like the art house cinema in Iceland, and then it has like some horror festivals and stuff like that. But it's not publicly available or anything like that. But like when we did that, like I just, you know, okay, I need a cinematographer. I'll talk to Aron, who's, you know, really great camera. I'll talk to this actor, you know, it was just kind of natural. And I don't think, you know, it has so much to do, you know, when it comes to this kind of stuff, action, not to get cliche, but like action speaks louder than words. And, you know, you can kind of talk yourself to death with people like, oh, we're going to do this, but, you know, you have to do it. And it's better to do a lot of small things like shorts or just, you know, music videos, or even like we would do like, you know, sketches for YouTube and just these weird like videos and just having fun. And that, you know, that does so much more than, you know, sitting around talking about like one, you know, we're gonna do this, that's you know, we want to do this, we, you know,
I mean, you can see it all over the world essentially. So many, in terms of, like you say, sketches. I remember, like, I remember even myself, you know, that's something that you kind of start with, wanting to do something, make fun with it, and being able to easily upload it. So that's why I find your sort of entry into your career so interesting, in terms of that it is based off of this generation that comes off from specific technology and then goes in. And so then by doing that, by then making the opportunity to have a feature film kind of on your own with the people close to you, and then having that sort of making the decision, all right, you know, in this big collaborative group for this project, I'm going to be the writer and the director, which you may have been taken on, as you say, you wanted to have the control. You probably would have adapted into that kind of naturally. But in your eyes, what is the role of the director, and what is your favorite part about the process of making films?
I think like the role of the director is the unifier. It's, you know, it's the person that, you know, has a vision, but everyone on the set has a vision. I mean, some people don't. Some people are just there for hire, and that's great. But, you know, most people on the set have a vision, but it's your job as a director to kind of unify it and kind of lead it on a path, like a narrow path that, you know, so that way people aren't just doing their own thing. Like, we have a goal, we have a path that we must follow. And that's kind of, I mean, you know, like I said, like I have directed one short that I didn't write myself, but other than that, like everything I've directed has been as a writer director. So and editor, so it's, you know, I'm very much
at every stage of its development, you are kind of in
and it's very much like my baby, even though it's also everyone else's baby, like, but because I take up so much of the pie. You know, it's but I think like as just a director, it's about, you know, your biggest job, your biggest responsibility is to pick out the best from everyone in terms of vision, in terms of skill, in terms of creativity, and put it together and put it on a.
So at what part of the process would you say is would you say that it is that sort of, as you just said now, kind of a sort of a starting point really of not only casting but who can I trust once where the idea is kind of still raw and it's still kind of exciting really, or is it kind of more once you have a finished product and you're doing in the editing room and you're cutting?
It's all through.
It's all
I
through.
think, yeah. It's you can't fall asleep at the wheel. You or go on autopilot. You have to all the way through have this job of unifying things and having a vision and having things where you want things to go. And that starts from as a director, like even if you're not writing it, it starts from the very first step. From the casting, from the whole pre-production till just like the very last step, which is when it comes to the marketing, even sometimes you don't really have much to say about it, but if you have like even there, that's part. But also like the grading, the color grading, and the sound mix, and like it's all the way through. Like you have to be on your toes.
And that's obviously and coming from a sort of an independent group where you've had experience with everything, you feel like I could lay a hand in this and
I mean and even though when it comes to like the audio mix, I don't do anything technical. Like I'm not in the production of it like from any technical point, but I listen and I go like this is too loud, this is like just from a creative just from a director standpoint. I'm not I'm not going like put more compressor here or that. Like that's not my job, and that's not my exactly. The people who are mixing are that's their talent and that's they know what to do. But it's more just like kind of what the vision is.
Exactly. So in that sort of big process, particularly maybe the shooting process, what's kind of the most important thing to keep in mind? Is it maybe that sort of being the voice, being the unifier then, or is there other parts to it?
There's definitely that, but also I think, and kind of, connected to that is also to kind of be open to changes. To not, I think the most important thing, you have to have, your plan, your vision. You whether I don't storyboard, but if you storyboard, I do shot lists. And you see it in your head, like this is what I want to do. You even maybe write it that way. But once you get on set, and once you've cast it and everything, like there are gonna be times, a lot of times, especially the lower the budget is, where you can't do exactly what you planned. And instead of wasting hours and hours and everyone's energy into like trying to get like exactly what I wanted, like just go like, all right, what can I do? And a lot of times I've found it's better that way. It turned like the world becomes your collaborator. Like,
exactly.
And because you're only one person and you can have the greatest imagination in the world, but it's still just one person. But when you get into the environment and understand stuff, like you get challenged by so many things, and you can't be defiant of that. You can't be just, no, I want to do this because sure, if you're a genius maybe that works.
Exactly.
But most of the times it will create challenges create better opportunities.
Exactly. But they also kind of may lead to mistakes and something that you kind of learn from and so what kind of mistakes have you made during any of the sort of processes of all the projects that you've done that you think might inspire aspiring filmmakers and what they should know about?
Well, I've made a lot of mistakes, but a lot of them have been like in context of what I was doing, so it's kind of difficult to pinpoint but I think like the biggest one is being defiant of what's going around and not listening to what's actually happening. And also like as far as being a director, and I mean this is also just as a human being, but the biggest mistake is saying no for someone else. Like you wanna I wanna get this person for a part, but it's not gonna do it. No, I'm not gonna ask him or her or whatever, because they're just gonna say no. And then or I wanna shoot in this place. What? No, they're not gonna let me. They're not, And then and there have been like I've gotten a lot better at not saying no for other people and just asking and getting no sometimes, but also getting yes. But there have been times that I look back and I'm like, I should have asked. I should have,
exactly.
I should have, because the worst thing in the world that can happen is just they say no. Yeah. And that's whatever. Like that's
really good. Well, I think we'll break it up with a bit of sort of a quickfire round. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to start off very broad, not specific at all. It might be very hard for you to actually pick. But what is your favorite film?
My favorite film is a film called Pusher 2, which is a Danish film. It's the sequel to a movie called Pusher. It stars Mads Mikkelsen. I love the Pusher. It's a trilogy.
Right.
I love the whole trilogy, especially 2 and 3. But the second one is, I pick it as my favorite because it's not only like a masterpiece, but also it has everything I think a movie needs. It's funny. It's also sad. It's also it has thrilling. It has everything.
Yeah. Then in terms of thinking, the next question being your favorite director. Who directed the Pusher 2? Was it
Nicholas Winding Refn? The guy who did Drive and Neon Demon, and he's kind of. If I had to pick a favorite director, he would be, because even like he's a director who does his own thing, like just completely. He's not trying to be something else. He's not trying to compromise, which can be a bad or a good thing. But in his situation, I think it works. And even like sometimes he does something that I'm not a huge fan of, but at least like it left something. It's a piece of art. It's not just like some studio production that just kind of you watched it and then you forget it like 5 minutes. It tells there's you engage with it in some way.
Yeah, it has an attitude. It has something to say.
Exactly, like it does. Yeah,
that's fantastic. Is there a genre that you'd like to work with that you haven't so far?
Yeah. I mean, I want if I'm lucky, I want to do all genres.
Yeah.
Throughout life, but I mean the one that I kind of want to do next is like horror, like pure horror, not horror comedy.
Yeah.
But like that's kind of.
That's good. Yeah. What's the most tedious thing about filmmaking?
Financing. Yeah, that's just it's the worst.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. And then finally, what film would you consider to be a guilty pleasure?
Well, I mean. These days, like the kind of right answer would be like some movie made by some horrible monster, like some Roman Polanski or Woody Allen or something. Exactly, yeah. But I think like in more kind of fun way, I watch every year for Christmas. I watch a movie called Surviving Christmas, starring Ben Affleck, that everyone hates and is probably on IMDb bottom 100 movies or whatever. Yeah. But I love it. It's probably the movie I've seen the most in my life because I watch it every Christmas for the last 15 years. So I would probably pick that one. I really
fantastic. I do like that answer. I haven't seen that film, but I can imagine that Ben Affleck has been in a couple of stinkers. Yeah, like that.
And to some people that's one of them, but to me, no.
Would you say because I feel like he's like he's such a filmmaker as well as an actor and everything else, that maybe he has a bit of a say in everything that he does? Do you think?
Yeah, I mean, especially today. I mean, this movie is from like 2003, so like it was, it's before he became a director. But I mean, I'm a big fan of Ben Affleck. As Gone Baby Gone, his first movie is one of my top 10 favorite movies. Like I love it. But he probably especially like since he became a director, he probably has a lot to say.
Yeah, has a lot to say and everything. Yeah. Well then, so that's it for the quickfire round. So we'll continue on because I feel like as you've alluded to, you've been doing this for quite a long time on different sorts of levels, both as an amateur and then as professionally on an independent level, financing, all these sorts of things. But I think it's very interesting because you're doing it here in Iceland, which doesn't have the longest history when it comes to filmmaking, but definitely over the past 40 years, it's definitely evolved into its own thing.
Yes.
Although I do feel like a lot of people here in Iceland probably don't have the greatest amount of patience for it, I feel. But it does get some sort of, international acclaim in some sense.
Yeah, definitely.
So, but what are the things that you love about it, and maybe if you could name one thing that you love and one thing that you hate, because obviously it's also a very small market. It's very much of a niche. There's financing involved and amateur groups. There's a handful of big studios and all these sorts of things. What would you think?
Yeah, to me, the worst thing and the best thing is the same thing. It's the size. It's how small the market and the industry in itself is. It's great to be like if you shoot in Iceland, especially like on my level, whatever. You don't need like permits to see. Like you could just go out wherever. And of course on private property you need permits, but like as far as like go downtown, like if you're outside you don't need any permission like other places in the world. And it's very easy, like the biggest actors in Iceland are in the phone book. Like you can just go like you can literally just go to it's called Já.is, which is like the online phone, and you can just search Hilmir Snær, which is what the biggest actor has. He's just there, and you just call him, and you go, can I send you a script? And he'll go yes. And like that's that's really great. Yeah. But that also, like on the flip of that, the horrible thing is like the movies I make and the movies I want to make are not for everyone. They're kind of a bit niche. They're a bit like, I get why some people wouldn't like them.
No, yeah.
And that's fine when you make a movie in like Spanish or English, because you have such a big pool of people that even like if only 5% of those people like it, that's a huge amount of people.
Exactly.
But in Iceland, like a success, like a huge cinematic success, that's like 50,000 people.
Yeah.
That go to the cinema, and if you make a movie that is not for everyone, and that's like for my movies have been for like young people and that kind of stuff, and that's not a lot of people.
No,
that's,
exactly.
that's very, and and yes, then you can maybe like send it to some festivals where, but it's still like, because it's in Icelandic, it just there's not a lot. If you're doing it in English or whatever, like you can make a living career of doing very specialized movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Like even just like art house movies that like very very few people see.
Yeah.
You can still but in Iceland you can't.
No, and I feel like particularly with young people, because as someone growing up around the sort of same time, being a teenager and all that, when your films came out, it was definitely something that people went to see, and it was there. But I think that with just our generation, as it kind of went through the 2010s and then even today, I think kids grow up with loads of references, loads of things to watch, and I think that with how English and even other languages kind of come into the culture and all that sort of outside culture coming in, I feel that things that feel a bit too home and a bit too niche, kind of what you say, it might not resonate with a lot of people, and I think that they might see content in different sorts of mediums in different ways. And I think also going to the movies in Iceland, that's also, that's kind of all over around the world, but I feel like maybe that's not on par even with that.
Yeah.
Putting people be in seats.
Yeah, I think so. Also because it has become really expensive to go to the movies.
Yeah.
Like it, and teenagers and even like just young adults, like it's kind of become kind of a luxury. Like it's not. So when you go to the movies, it's either gonna be a movie that you really want to see, or a movie that a lot of your friends that you go together as a group. It's you're not just going to see whatever, like and kind of. So that's kind of, and also like because we have things like YouTube and TikTok, even though that's not art or whatever, it's still in Icelandic. It's still, there's not this, like when I was growing up, and before that, before like kind of YouTube and TikTok, like you had this kind of need or kind of thirst to see Icelandic things, like even if it was if it wasn't good or whatever, even if it wasn't made for you, like it was for older people, whatever, it was different. Like it was, and it kind of spoke to in a way that I don't think Icelandic movies do still, because we have TikTok and YouTube and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Which I'm not saying that kind of.
No, but I agree with you, because I think a sort of to have a healthy connection with cinema, which is this huge point of expression for every single culture in the world, and wanting to have that sort of step in, not just in films but in TV, for example, in Icelandic TV, early on, past 20 years ago, something like that. These sorts of things, you knew these references. This is something that has shaped you as a human and in this society, and what you reference, and even today people are still referencing it. And so not maybe having something that feels like a national stamp on it, on a topic or way of expressing, not having that seems interesting or connects well enough, it's a bit of a shame. But I mean, like, it can because it can do wonders. It can really do something amazing.
Yeah, and I think like in Iceland, like I have a younger brother who's 18, and he watches a lot of Icelandic stuff, but mostly it's like, it's not fiction. It's like panel shows, or like or sports things, or kind of like reality TV kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's not, it's and I've like with the last movie, the movie I'm making now, like I heard from one of the biggest television stations here, when we were selling the movie. They were like, we don't want to buy movies, especially Icelandic, for this this market, like for this age group, like for young people, because young people today don't watch movies.
Right.
They watch television series,
Yeah.
they binge, but they don't watch. And they like, and they're not talking out of their asses. They know what's going on their streaming services, and like they had a movie, Icelandic movie, that came out like last year, like the year before, and it got okay views, whatever. But then they cut it up into a series, and
Really?
the watching
Wow.
just skyrocket.
That's
So,
insane.
yeah.
Because that hits it at its core creative. When you're creating that, if you've made it into a film, it's supposed to be made in that.
Yeah.
And to cut it up like that, and wow.
Yeah, and that's probably like, that's one thing like that I'm gonna think about with making more movies in the future, is I'm always gonna be like, all right, is it something that I can make also cut it up into 4 pieces or whatever, and do, because
right.
I think that's kind of the future in it, like people
Exactly. Yeah.
it's I mean it's a very kind of hacky joke or whatever, but it's still the same. Like you ask someone, do you want to watch the 2-hour movie, and they're like, no, I don't have time.
Yeah,
but do you want to binge for 8 hours? Like yeah, sure.
Exactly.
Definitely. Like that's,
you feel like you can pause it. You feel like you can kind of
it's
done for the day.
And you can do your ironing, and you can do like you don't have to focus completely on it.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, I think that's
No, I think that's a very good point, actually. So I have kind of breaking it up a bit as well here now, kind of at the end. Some would you rather questions. So would you rather, and you've kind of alluded to this earlier on, but would you rather work on a horror film or a sci-fi film? So I'm assuming
horror. Yeah,
horror,
I still one day want to do sci-fi, but horror is kind of also, just as a watcher, like I would rather watch a horror movie than a sci-fi.
And you feel, because I feel like, and that's the same that I gravitate towards horror as well, is that you can do it so low budget. Because the
definitely.
concept of fear in film or whatever medium, it's so.
And you could do it low budget, and people watch it. Like you can do pretty much everything low budget, but like there's people aren't gonna watch a low budget like disaster movie, like but people there's a movie out in America in theaters that are also coming to streaming called Skinamarink or something.
Right.
That was made for like $10,000, and it's it's a hit. Like and you have Blair Witch Project, and you have Paranormal Activity. You have these movies that like made for nothing pretty much, and become like global wide hits. That's very rare in any other genre.
But speaking also about abroad and kind of what we were discussing earlier, kind of the last one. Would you rather only work abroad or only work in Iceland?
Only work abroad.
Only work abroad.
Yeah. That's
from your experience.
And also, that's kind of, it's easy for me to say because I've worked in Iceland like for 10 years or whatever. So, but like I was talking about, like I rather want to work, abroad and doing things that could kind of be sold and marketed to a bigger audience.
Yeah. So to kind of conclude, just kind of overall theme, which is, what it means to put everything together, to be the visionary, to have a big project like that, but also just to tell stories through film. What would you say, not just to aspiring directors, but why should people get excited about making films?
Well, I think either you are or you aren't excited. But I think if it's something that you want to do, you should definitely do it. And you don't. The biggest trap I see people fall into is the kind of just like, I want to do it, but I only want to do multi-million budget. Like I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna, one day I'll do a movie or whatever. Like that's not, especially today, that's not gonna happen unless you get really, really lucky. But I think it's really fun and really there's nothing like it. And I think it's difficult. It's really not just making it, but also just the business side of it, getting financing and producing. But if you want to make a movie or even just but I also think today people have so many options of you don't have to do a feature film. You can also do just videos for the internet on TikTok, and that's not when I was growing up, you could do it, there was YouTube or whatever, but I was kind of, people look kind of down on it. But today, exactly. That's not the biggest stars in the world or people with YouTube shows, and it's kind of become legitimate.
Yeah, and it almost kind of feels awkward because their gimmick that works on YouTube, when it transcends to something else, may not actually transcend well because and it's seemingly, as people have just been had money thrown at them to make content.
It's a special lane, but it has become legitimized, and you can. You don't have to become Logan Paul. You don't have to do what he does, but you can take that legitimacy and that viewership and do your own thing. And I think a lot of times it's much smarter to if you want to do a short, to just put it on YouTube and you can get. And that's still, there are people who do whole movies and feature length films and put it on YouTube, and it gets hundreds and hundreds of thousands of views, even millions, which they wouldn't have had they tried to do the theatrical route,
Exactly.
But I think it's just do it.
Just do it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Like Nike said.
Yeah, just like Nike said. Well, thank you very much for coming.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And